Today in my video blog, I want to share some thoughts about the Holy Spirit. So to introduce the identity of the Holy Spirit, I thought it might be helpful if we would just ask some questions. I've thought of three. There are others, of course, but these will do at least to introduce. The first is probably the simplest. Simply, who is the Holy Spirit? And it might be good to let Jesus explain this to us. He says in John's Gospel, "But now I'm going away to the one who sent me, and none of you has asked me where I'm going. Instead, you're very sad. But it's actually best for you that I go away, because if I don't, the Counselor won't come. If I go away, he will come, because I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will convince the world of its sin and of God's righteousness and of the coming judgment." That's from John's Gospel, chapter 16. So, who according to Jesus is the Holy Spirit? Well, first we might say who the Spirit is not. The Spirit is not an it. The Holy Spirit is actually a wonderful person. In fact, we could say that the Spirit is just as much a person as Jesus is. If you find in the Spirit the same, personality and mind and will and emotion at work. And so Jesus tells us that the Spirit is actually a person. The second question, we might want to describe how the Spirit and the church are related. How do they go together? And probably the simplest way to think about that is on the day of Pentecost, when the Spirit falls upon the church. There's external sign gifts, and the church is indwelt by the Holy Spirit. This is widely considered to be the time the church was birthed. Now, in the Old Testament, there's a contrast, because the Spirit didn't indwell people; the Spirit came upon people. You think about Samson, when he had the strength of the strength of supernatural strength, physical strength, and that was because he fulfilled the Nazirite vow. And as he fulfilled the Nazirite vow, the Spirit came upon him and strengthened him. It wasn't his hair; it was this vow and this promise. When he cut his hair, it wasn't because he'd cut the hair. The strength wasn't in the hair. The Holy Spirit was removed from him. And that no New Testament Christian would have the Spirit removed from them. And so you see, it's actually then when Peter talks about this is a partial fulfillment of the prophet Joel's promise that God would pour out his Spirit upon all flesh. In the Old Testament, the Spirit came upon rock stars, important people. But now the Spirit is coming upon everyone who trusts Christ. So actually from this you could make two important statements. The first is the Holy Spirit is the link between the risen Christ and the church. The Spirit is the one who makes the church more than a civic club or a community organization. Of course, there are courses within the veins of the church, the same social rules and traits as any organization where people gather. But the Holy Spirit is the one who makes the church different, so that while the church is a social organization, it's politics and all the rest, it's more than that. But actually we could go deeper, and we could define the church as a called out community. But a community of people in relationship. In relationship, we would say, with God through the work of Jesus on the cross and in the resurrection. But a community of people also in relationship with each other through the Holy Spirit. That is, the discipleship community is given a spiritual nature or a supernatural dimension that other clubs and organizations don't have. Which leads actually to the third question: how is the Holy Spirit experienced today? We would say first that the Spirit is experienced as power. We have the power of the new birth, the power of changed life. So, I often say that what we find in the offering of Christ is new life, spiritual life, and a new way to live. And both of those are given to us by the power of the Spirit. We could also say that there's an illumination that occurs with the power of experiencing the Spirit, where the power of the Spirit opens the Word to us, and then also leads the church as we seek to find what God would have us to do in today's world. So there's a continuation, a continuity between the Spirit that fell on the church at Pentecost and the church that exists today. In other words, the Spirit is the one who allows the church to become that continuing and living incarnation of Jesus. But we would also say that because of that, it helps us, because not everything is settled. Our theology, where we might think is settled, is not really settled, because there are new questions all the time, new struggles, and so the Spirit leads the church in the new directions that it needs to go. So that's a small introduction, and we'll do more next time. Ciao.